Salve, people of the universe. Welcome to the Gemtocratic podcast. I'm here, joined again by...
Imperator.
And I am, of course, Salvatore. And, yes, I hope you guys enjoyed the last podcast we did, which was mostly about the statehood of Palestine and what it would mean to have a statehood, but also partially about other things, including Mr. Beast and stuff. But there's been some time since the last episode, so there's a few things we should definitely talk about. The first thing is, of course, something that we can't really just go past without mentioning. The brilliant military operation where Israel actually sold a bunch of bombed explosive devices hidden as pagers and walkie-talkies, and also, according to some sources, even other devices, to Hezbollah, which is the terrorist group that is located in southern Lebanon, right on the border of Israel and Lebanon, who have then used those devices and were subsequently blown to smithereens. Of course, some innocent people did die in this attack, but that's kind of just how war works. Because as we all know, victory costs innocent lives and defeat costs everything. So, what do you think about that brilliant display of technology?
It's some Looney Tunes type shit.
Yeah, I feel like it's something we would see on South Park, right?
I do not watch much South Park.
Oh, yeah, I mean, just like to take like any like cartoon, pretty much like that's like adult
Yeah.
cartoon, you would just expect something like that.
Oh yeah. I think it's
Uh,
very funny. Just put it on random electronic devices.
yeah,
All
and
they're missing is the whole made in China thing.
it's funny because some people say that like it's a war crime, but let's be fair, like this was the most targeted thing you could do. Like how much more you're literally selling to terrorists and blowing those things up. How much more targeted can you get? If you just drop bombs, that's less targeted, right? That's so it's like to some people like Israel can't do right because it's just like people also conflate. It's kind of weird how like the Western world tends to conflate like Lebanon with Hezbollah, which is kind of interesting because even Lebanon is a multicultural and multi-religious. Uh, it's not an ethno state. Doesn't have just one religion and one culture. It's very much a mix, and a lot of people actually flee from like Syria through Lebanon. Um, but yeah, to some people they just can't do right. And this also brings up a very disturbing thing, which is Erdogan, right, from Turkey. You know what
Who
I'm
the
talking about,
fuck
right?
is that?
He's
No.
the president of Turkey. He's Recep Erdogan. So basically, uh, he's been kind of this weird, sort of like half NATO member who has kind of
Wait, I don't even
acted as
have
a
NATO.
well,
Or
he
they
is
have NATO.
okay. So this is what I mean with half NATO member. He's officially a member, right, of
Yeah,
NATO,
of course, yeah.
but since it's Turkey, he's in a very difficult position politically speaking, and he also at the same time has more of an authoritarian regime. Let's just say. Uh, Now, of course, we do not support authoritarian regimes, but at the same time, considering his position, it's very logical why he's not making it more democratic. Because let's not forget that there's a big, large history there for Turkey and like the surrounding area, with the original people who lived in, especially the Assyrian region, and the also parts of Iran, which were the um what were they called again? The Kurds. I think they're called Kurds. I'm not entirely certain if that was the terminology, but
Like a
uh,
cheese curd?
no, it's no, like it's like Teletubbies. Just Teletubbies. Teletubbies live there. The Teletubbies are from Turkey, confirmed. No,
So Turkey has a giant baby for a son. Why is their son different
God.
from ours? Why
Um,
is it giant? You're saying the baby is God? I'm pretty sure that girl grew up.
yeah,
Got it.
and didn't she like sue? I think she sued. I'm pretty sure she did.
Son, baby, lawsuit? I think so. Let's see. Teletubby's own baby is pregnant, expecting own baby. That is not her suing.
Okay,
She's
so
27 years old.
not
I don't think
suing,
she did.
but pregnant.
But she looks weird.
Yeah,
Actually,
well,
pretty normal. I've seen people like it, but meh.
all right.
God,
So
I don't like seeing the son baby thing and then her current face next to each other. It's just unsettling. I don't like it.
I can imagine. So,
Look at that.
but let's see. Oh, what? Oh, guys, you should totally look that up. That's really weird. It looks. Why does it almost look the same? Why does it look like she's just an? Oh, I mean, I guess it is an adult version.
She looks like an adult. Oh,
But
here's
no,
another
no,
funny
like
image.
you know, like when people like grow up, they usually look different than when they
Oh,
were
yeah.
younger. Like she looks almost like one for one like a baby, except older. It's
A
complicated, but
pedophile's dream.
oh god, no, Jeffrey Epstein, no, what are you doing? Not the Teletubby baby. Okay. Anyway, so talking about Teletubby babies, Turkey. So Erdogan, he's also, of course, a Muslim. So we all know what's coming just by saying that, which is that he's been very supportive of the idea of a Palestinian statehood, which is what we've talked about in the last podcast episode. But the real issue is that he is one of the big components of the United Nations panel, which is now accusing Israel of violating human rights and violating Geneva Convention war crime laws, basically. And, you know, no one's really talked about it, but Turkey has a very dark history of, like, genocide. So it's kind of interesting how it's usually the countries which are authoritarian and have done a lot of genocide in the recent past are actually the ones that are now claiming that Israel is doing a genocide. Which, you know, again, if they really were doing genocides, they'd be very terrible at it.
I think they'd have more bombs to wipe out all the people if they just wanted to genocide them.
Yeah, and also, like, let's not forget they have opened up humanitarian corridors, and they have made humanitarian zones. The issue is that people bring up with that is that they say, well, they still sometimes bomb those areas. But what they don't... this is the thing about war. Your enemy moves too. If your enemy moves into a humanitarian zone, that then, according to the international law, becomes a war zone. You have the permission to engage with... Same with hospitals. You have the permission, according to Article, I think it was 18 of the Geneva Convention.
Yeah, no, I don't really read the Geneva Suggestions panel. I wouldn't.
Suggestion.
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, it's just suggestions. Who's enforcing them?
And that's what we'll get to in a little bit. But first, to restate my point, you can't say that a place with combatants is a humanitarian zone. That's just not how it works. It stops being a humanitarian zone as soon as there's combatants there, right? So, but that what you just said does bring up an interesting kind of, I would say, segue into the United Nations, which is, of course, about how are they responding to this? Well, we've already heard that the ICC, the International Criminal Court, which is in The Hague, also known as Den Haag, which is in my country, the Netherlands, but has no real authority, really. South Africa has worked together with a bunch of other countries to try to, I guess, it's not really suing, but it's starting a case against, in the criminal court, Israel for quote-unquote war crimes. And the main argument people use is that South Africa should know about justice because they were segregated not too long ago until, the whole, I think it was Nelson Mandela. Yeah, Nelson Mandela, who kind of like made it less segregated. But at the same time, we have to remember that right there does not give them authority over what is segregation, what is a genocide. And the fact that they are actually helping these other people, right? These other countries like North Korea, who's siding with them, and Russia and Iran, which are all countries that treat women badly, that treat gays badly, that treat
Wait, Russians
animals.
treat women badly?
Well, Russia, I guess Russia is the least bad out of those four, like, women. But
North
it
Korea
does.
treats everyone badly.
I mean, yeah, but that still counts women because women are still people. At least, well, I guess maybe not there, maybe not there, but yeah, no, but
Wait, so they took Israel to court.
Yes, they are trying to take Israel to court,
They took an entire country to court.
Yep, the International Criminal Court, and this is the problem. The United Nations, Antonius Guerrero, I think his name is. He's like the UN chairman, board member. I don't know what to call him. Well, basically, I mean, it's funny that you would mention that because he's basically just a commie in disguise. Let's not forget, okay, that Antonius, this man, has actually supported actual war crimes in the past. Now, I'm not gonna get into the details of that in this episode, but we might get into that another time when we go more into depth about that. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because he's actually someone that is very vocal against Israel. Now, we have to remember, this is someone who is basically in charge of the United Nations. He's basically like the chair master of the United Nations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he is vocal about being against Israeli interests. And what does this mean?
Jesus Christ.
You know what this means? This means that he's not neutral. And this is the same problem. Because guess what other funny thing is happening with the United Nations, right? With the United Nations so-called charity work, like the UNRWA, which had actual Hamas terrorists working with them.
What?
It's that organization from yeah, I think you remember like that entire ordeal where they were like defund UNRWA. Well, and it gets even worse because guess which countries are part of the humanitarian board of the United Nations? It's not the Netherlands, it's not Denmark, it's not even really any of those countries. You know what countries are in there? Iran. Iran's in there. I'm pretty sure Afghanistan's in there too.
What the fuck?
Here, let me look it up to confirm. UN Human Rights Council. Here. Let's see who the members are. Right. So the members of the Burkina Faso, right? India, Eritrea. Eritrea, let's not forget, Eritrea is an African country that has been known to oppress its own people. Okay?
Amen to that.
Eritreans are fleeing from there due to being politically and sometimes even religiously persecuted. Let's not forget that fact. These countries are part of the United Nations Human Rights Council. But that's not the only one. There's 47 members, it says here, right? Let's take a look at who else are members. All right, let's see. What's an interesting one? Let's pick just any random one. Let's pick any random one. Oh, Russia used to be a part of it, is no longer part of it.
Oh, used to.
They were part of it until 2023. Right?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's see. Who else is part of it? Ukraine is now part of it, which is funny.
Nice.
China, China.
Oh,
Remember that country?
China.
That country that during the corona pandemic killed their own people, literally executed their own people because they didn't want the virus to spread, or they spread certain information about the virus, and then suddenly that police state that is currently threatening war against the Philippines, Japan, Taiwan, and is trying to claim the South China Sea, quote unquote. Those are United Nations human rights members.
Yeah, I don't see a
Keep that in
problem here,
mind.
pal.
So
Let them fight for human rights,
this
but not
this
give them.
this brings me back to the question you ask: who is policing the world when no one is going to agree on this, right? Because there's these two very opposing teams here. This is just a great schism in the world. It's literally the Age of Escalation thesis, as written in Gemtocratic Manifesto. It's literally just that. That's what it is. You can't try to have these two very separate ideologies, these very different religions that are all siding into two corners. You can't have them be friends. There is no middle to meet at because there's a ravine in the middle. You can't meet in the middle. It's impossible.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Listen, pal. You ever heard of a bridge, my guy? Ravine hasn't stopped us before.
Yeah, well, the problem with bridges, right, is that people keep burning them before they're even built.
I mean, honestly, a little bit of fire never hurt no one.
I know of
No?
several burn victims who
No.
would disagree with you.
I'll have a debate with them. I'll prove them wrong.
Some of them are dead. How are you gonna have a debate with them? Come up the
Exactly.
ghost.
They don't have a. I want them to do the starting debate. I want them to start. I'll
Yeah.
wait.
You know, it is kind of interesting though, right? Like if you talk about like fire and like stuff like that, and like that, there was actually like this. I don't know if you heard about this woman in I think it was Switzerland, who was actually originally from the United States, who used a suicide booth, and they
A
all
fucking
got
what?
like people got arrested for it because there's this machine that
Yeah.
lets people commit suicide basically.
Fucking what?
There's actually a few countries in the world where, like even in my country, the Netherlands, I don't know about yours, but where you can request to be put down pretty much if your mental suffering or
Nope.
physical suffering is
It
too
was a-
bad.
Big problem here in Denmark. You are not allowed to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you are allowed to do that here, but it requires so much. Like, you can't just simply do it. There's like
God,
several
why can't I just kill
psychiatrists.
myself?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the stigma for suicide here is a lot like less there, I guess. There's less of a stigma here.
Yeah.
People understand you far better. But you know, speaking of suicide,
God, this is some Futurama type shit.
I know, right? It's like that, like you know, isn't it like how it
The
like in the first
suicide booth,
episode? Yeah, like I think in the first episode,
Fry
that's
goes
where he
into the
like
suicide booth with
yeah, and then he
Bender,
meets
yeah.
the robot, yeah, the robot guy.
Yeah.
Speaking of robots and machines,
I just googled the suicide booth and it says you can get help. Talk to someone today. Lifeline. That has a phone number. Let me see the website. I'm curious.
Is it
Jesus
113?
Christ, the website design makes me want to kill myself.
So, right. But speaking of like suicide machines and stuff like that, you know
Oh, yeah,
Chester
a
Bennington
very
from
common
Linkin
topic.
Park?
No. What?
You know who Chester Bennington is? No?
No, not at
So,
all.
you know who Linkin Park is, right?
I've heard of them.
So
and a
Linkin
bit of their
Park
music,
was
yeah.
like this band kind of which had the main members Mike Shinoda and Chester Bennington.
Shinoda. What a weird name.
So Chester Bennington in 2017 he killed himself, right? And
Oh.
he was a great singer, great vocalist. And recently a new song was released with their new singer. So Linkin Park has now a new singer, which is a woman. And you know, maybe that's not necessarily a problem you would think.
It
but
is. It's a woman.
The thing is,
The incels come out.
she's a Scientologist, right?
Oh. Oh God.
So,
No.
and I don't know if you know anything about Scientology.
I've
But
heard
they-
enough to know no.
They don't believe in mental illness.
What? What?
Scientologists do not believe in mental illness. And remember
Jesus
what I just said. The
Christ.
previous lead singer of that band
Killed
killed
himself. Yeah.
himself.
Has she been asked to speak out about it yet? I want to know what she thinks made him kill
Yeah.
himself.
Okay. So she says that. Okay. So this is the thing, though, right? She says that she's no longer that person, but it gets worse. Because not only was she a Scientologist, but she also defended Danny Masterson, a convicted rapist, in court.
Jesus.
Danny Masterson, he was on that 70s
What
show.
my
He's the guy that played
doesn't
Hyde.
like- Never seen it or heard of him.
Right. So,
I don't watch shows, you old fuck.
yeah, I mean, I am old, but
I eat, sleep, repeat.
that's beside the point. But this does bring me to the point as well. Like, some people liked it, some people didn't like it. But I think it's just a bad choice to use the same name. Like, if they had just started a new name, I think no one would have had a problem with it. But to still call yourself that same name when you don't have the same lead singer and you have, like, you know,
A
like...
weirdo new singer?
Yeah, like, if they had picked anyone else that didn't have this baggage on them, that would have been so much
Oh,
better.
yeah.
Now, of course, people
They should
can...
pick you.
No. People can... They want their music to be good. No. But, but people can change. But some sins are unforgivable. And I feel like defending a rapist is unforgivable. So, right. But bringing up that... You know,
Bringing up
one of the
rapists.
biggest problems when you talk about, like, suicide and stuff like that, right? I think music can be a real problem in Western society. Because a lot of emotionally unstable and emotionally damaged people are very easily, like, led by the music. So they feel something, so they listen to music, and then they feel validated through that music, right?
Fuck.
And I know that because I do the same thing. When I feel really bad, I like to listen to music, so I feel validated in my feelings. But I also am very aware of that fact. But a lot of people aren't aware of that fact, so they could be led to believe things that they didn't like. To give you an example, when I was a little kid, when we're talking about, like, Gaza, right? I used to love a song. I used to love a song about Gaza, but I didn't understand what it meant. I just loved the song. I just thought it was nice. It was We Will Not Go Down, and I forgot by who it is, but it's a banger song, honestly. It's just sad that it's about such a bad message, which is just that Gaza is just victims, and it's just that's just what they are. But no, it's a long story. There's more to tell there, and of course, innocent people dying is not fun, and there is a point there made in that song about politicians taking way too long to take action, which, you know, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But, you know, if I were a kid and I listened to that song, but I didn't have a basic level of intelligence that, you know, can figure this out, I would have probably taken that song and be like, oh, I love this song, so it must be right. Because, you know, it's just positivity equals right. That's just how children tend to think, and people who are stupid tend to think. And the masses think that way. Also, even people that are stupid can think that way sometimes, because they get overwhelmed by thinking about things too much. So they stop thinking, they go into escapism. But anyway, the point that I'm trying to make with this is, it can be used for propaganda. And we see the same thing with songs about, you know, climate change. So let's, for example, talk about, if we're talking about mental health, if we're talking about climate change, if we're talking about propaganda, let's not forget about Bo Burnham's special, the comedian, Inside. It's a great special, but there's this one segment in there where called How the World Works. And there will be spoilers now, so if you want to watch that, I recommend you watch that special right now. But there's this part where he sings a song about how the world works, and at first it's all beautiful, like bees and flowers, and like they work together. But then he brings out this sock puppet called Socko, and he starts just saying all sorts of things. Basically, the sock is a communist, basically, but also at the same time makes a few valid points. And I think that regardless of what you believe, I think that that's like the thing. Same with, like, for example, leaks for like TV shows, right? If there's leaks for TV shows, usually people can fake those things if they sandwich things together that are unlikely with things that are very likely or things that have already been confirmed, right? So it's kind of like, oh, well, if that's true, then the rest must be true too. And that's, again, that's the very base level of that. But that's also what Bob Burnham warns us about in his song Welcome to the Internet, which is about everything goes fast. You need to be everywhere.
Everyone fucks horses.
Exactly, you need to fuck every horse. You can't wear a condom. It's illegal to wear condoms if you're...
What?
If you're... What?
What?
No, but the point that I'm trying
What
to
the
make...
fuck?
The point that I'm trying to make is that not everyone is going to understand the significance of these subjects, right? They are just going to take them at face value, and they're going to use them. Now, this is the problem with stuff like the United Nations, and I'm going to tell you exactly what shows this, right? Joe Biden has his final speech at the United Nations, right? And he basically said...
Man, the sexy beast Biden.
So he said being president was the greatest honor of my life, and he just left. But he left a mess, because the world was looking to the United States for, like, how are you going to respond to the world? And they are in the middle of, like, elections right now, and people are, like, choosing. And this is the problem with a lot of democracies nowadays, right? Which we want to fix with Gemtocracy. It's demagoguery. It's the idea that people go for what sounds good rather than what is good, because what is good sometimes is a little bit more unpleasant. But it's the truth. So, let's give you an example. So, Kamala Harris, which is now the running candidate for president for the... Yeah, Kamala Harrison. The presidential candidate for the Democrats, right? So, a lot of people say that, oh, well, she's gonna support the Palestinians. But what they don't realize is that neither Kamala Harris nor Donald Trump is going to pick a side, really. Donald Trump might side more with Israel, and she might side more with Palestine, quote unquote, in comparison to each other. But that doesn't mean shit. Because you have to remember, and this might sound like a conspiracy at first, but you have to remember the history of the CIA and the FBI, and you can look up these documents. You know, these things have been proven and actually published by these organizations. The amount of influence that the United States has had in coups and just overthrowing countries and then gaining resources and helping start wars so that they can kind of like fund themselves through oil and stuff like that, and also like just funding for weapon manufacturing. These are proven things that the United States has done. These are not just conspiracies. These are things that they have admitted to doing. There are sources online you can find that just prove these things. They say it themselves, right? And that is what we need to remember here. So, on one hand, right, we have the Europeans, which are all fighting within themselves and dealing with their own problems, like, or climate problem right now, where, like, there's flooding everywhere, and that's a problem mostly of, like, you know, weather, and, you know, whether or not that's because of climate change, you know, that's a whole nother subject, but we are dealing with these problems right now. That's a fact. There are floods. There are, like, especially in a few, like a week ago or something, in Czechia, and like Italy, parts of Germany, right? These are facts. But whilst we're dealing with all this problem with immigration here and stuff like that, climate, and just trying to find our way in who are we as in, we're trying to find our identity as Europeans, basically. With the AFD, the German, more quote-unquote far-right nationalist party, quote-unquote, you know, that party getting really big. Just think about that for a second, what's happening right now. We're trying to find our identity. The United States is basically just uncertain about who they are, and everyone in Southeast Asia is looking to fight each other with China and Japan and the Philippines. Well, China and versus the other two and the other way around. Meanwhile, the South Africa is trying to start a case against Israel, and the Middle East is basically on the brink of war. Iran has threatened war, and I'm pretty sure that Iran even did like, was it Iran that did a continental missile, or was it China? I think it was China actually. So like they actually tested a missile. Like a country actually tested a missile for the first time in 3 decades, 3 or 4 decades. Like that's a long time. So I ask you here.
Just had to tell people it was a long time. They wouldn't know.
Yeah, no, but
That is a long time.
I'm gonna ask you right now. If the world is uncertain of who they are, what do you think is gonna happen?
We're gonna have war. Winner gets free shit.
The winner takes all. That's just the only way this is going to end. Because there's not just one conflict about to erupt. There's several.
My money's on Denmark. Denmark's gonna win it all.
Well, I hope that Western Europe can unite. That's our goal. Gemtocracy wants to unite Western Europe and maybe even more Europe, maybe also like Middle and South and East Europe. But we only will go as far as the countries want to, because autonomy is important, and we don't want to just start a world war. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for consensual integration into an empire that is going to be great, that is going to be stable, with their own autonomous regions, with respect for our own cultures, but also an overlaying law. And that law is the law of Gemtocracy.
And no more Geneva Convention or suggestions.
Geneva suggestions.
We're not doing that. Fuck them. We don't listen to that. It's commie bullshit.
Who needs human rights when you have no humans?
God, you're talking like that one goober who joined and talked about turning into a robot.
Who?
Don't you remember this guy who came in and then talked about becoming a robot, which was essentially just dying and then having a robot take his place? Because he wants to replace every part of his body, and then at last his brain. But he was aware that his consciousness wouldn't transfer over, so he just wanted a robot with his memories to walk around. He was a weird guy. He wanted that for every person on Earth.
I don't even remember this.
Yeah, no, you weren't really active during that. I kind of dealt with it.
No, was it in the Gemtocracy server on Discord?
Yeah.
Ah, yes.
He was a real goober, real
Yeah.
strange one.
You know,
We were even warned
like,
about it by one of the guys.
you remember how like that one time I did like that meeting in the server and like it went pretty well? And then I was gonna do that again, but I haven't really had the opportunity to, because I've been very busy.
Excuses.
Yes. Definitely excuses. Definitely
You are
not actually.
excused.
Definitely not actually busy and sick all the time, or
Not sick.
But
You're gonna die.
I think it's important that people understand what Gemtocracy is. People often misinterpret Gemtocracy as like just a revolutionary idea. It's not. Gemtocracy is the combination of Orionism philosophy with a new political system that's basically based on meritocracy and based on partial democracy, of course. Democracy is still going to be there, but it's going to be an improved version. Yeah, an improved version of democracy. One where it's not just idiots deciding what to do. It's if everyone gets a vote, then also the idiots get to vote. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So people say, well, shouldn't you just educate everyone then? You know, if you're suggesting that, you know full well that there's people who don't want to be educated. There's people who just don't want that.
Oh yeah.
And I don't mean like in the sense.
So how's 60-year-old grandpa gonna want to go back to school?
Yeah, and also like, it's not even that they don't want to because they don't agree with you. They just don't want to be bothered. Like.
Oh yeah.
It's not for everyone.
Lives. Let them touch kids.
Wait, what?
You already said yeah. It's too late.
Damn it! Is this how Epstein got away with it for so long?
Probably.
Am I also going to end up quote unquote killing myself?
Maybe. I mean, you're already dying, so.
That would be the day, wouldn't it?
Can't be speeding the process.
Anyway, I think I think we've talked on for long enough. But
You mean you've yapped?
I've been a very severe yapper here. So if you guys liked our yapping, especially me, because I yap a lot.
Like an hour? Wow.
This sounds
I was just talking,
commy,
you were yapping.
commy,
You fucking
hour.
communist. Our racism.
Anyway. Anyway.
Any day.
Subscribe to us. Join our Discord server. Leave a like. Comment on what you'd like to see us talk about next. And
Gay
we'll
horse
see you
sex.